Welcome back. Listography, Jason, Joe, and Kramzer. Supergrass Week, Side 3. We've ranked their discography. We've given our top 10 favorite songs. Today, we're going to talk about bands that we discovered through soundtracks. I think this makes sense for Supergrass because I think a large portion, especially of their American audience, discovered them through the Clueless soundtrack. That was the case for me. I had that soundtrack, so that's where I first heard them. Fell in love instantly. And in the top 10 songs video, Joe revealed that he heard Supergrass for the first time on a different soundtrack, actually, the Hot Fuzz soundtrack.
Well, Jason, it wasn't the first time I had heard Supergrass, but it was the song that made me explore them a lot more and really get into them. I'd heard All Right, and they used to play a couple songs on the local alternative station off Life on Other Planets. I think maybe Seen the Light, maybe Grace. Can't exactly remember, but they played a couple off that. So I was versed a little bit in Supergrass, but and I'll just kick off my list with the Hot Fuzz soundtrack and the great Edgar Wright. Love that movie. That's playing over I think the end credits. And I just love like the energy, the rush, the punky kind of ness. And it's not really, Supergrass is kind of all over the place with their influences and sound, but it immediately just caught my ear and I went and explored and really got into Supergrass. So thank you, Edgar, for that. Also on my list, and this is another Edgar Wright movie, Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Hold on. I thought we were talking about bands, not soundtracks. Bands that we found through soundtracks.
We are. It's a story. I'm telling a story, Jason.
Okay.
All right. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, another Edgar Wright movie. And in the movie, Scott's girlfriend, the lead singer of The Clash of Demon Head, she has an appearance and she's on stage, and I forget the actress's name. It's don't
Brie Larson.
Brie Larson. All right, so Brie Larson plays Scott's girlfriend in a band called The Clash of Demon Head. She's on stage. This awesome song she's singing, which, all these songs from the movie are written by like real artists, so they're all great. This one, written by Metric, actually called Black Sheep, which I didn't know. I'd never heard of Metric, but as soon as I heard this song, I had to hear them. I went on and downloaded that, and I like Metric. They're not like my favorite band or anything, but it's a killer track, and I got into them a little bit after I heard it. Also, from the Godzilla soundtrack, one of my favorites, Fuzz Bubble. I don't know if anybody remembers them. They had like one album. There's a track on the Godzilla soundtrack called Out There, just super infectious, kind of pop rock, awesome song, fun kind of album, Fuzz Bubble. If you guys never heard of them, check them out. They're fun. Also on my list, I was working in family video at the time, and we were just watching some dumb movie, happened to be Roll Bounce. I can't recommend the movie itself, but on the movie, there is a great little number from Bill Withers called Lovely Day, which I'd never heard before. But there it was, and I was like, wow, this song's awesome. So I asked one of the patrons of the movie store, like, do you know, who is this? So I was kind of jamming along. He's like, Bill Withers. So I went home and downloaded a bunch of Bill Withers songs, which obviously people know. Ain't No Sunshine the most, but he's got a lot of classics. And then finally, from Wedding Crashers, very end of the movie, they're all in the car together, turn on the radio. One of the great guitar licks of all time, Faces, Stay With Me, comes on. I was obsessed with that song for like months after that, after I heard that from the movie. And I don't know, I mean, the Faces are fine. They're not like my favorite band, but another band I didn't really know. I knew they existed. I never really heard them, but listening to that sort of got me in the Faces a little bit. I don't know. There's not a lot of bands that I really like. I heard from soundtracks, but some stuff, whatevs.
Very nice. All right. 4 of these 5 came when I was very young and like literally just didn't know them at all. But the first one happened when I was like 24, 25. It was an artist I already knew, but didn't really give a chance until I went and saw Tron Legacy and found out that Daft Punk did the soundtrack. Not just the soundtrack, but the whole friggin' score. Love the score, so I was like, I guess, yeah, I gotta give Daft Punk another shot, and like pretty much all of their albums. Don't love Daft Punk, but yeah, that's what got me into Daft Punk. I'm gonna go chronologically here. I think I was about 11 or 12, coming of age as a young boy. Um, Not a very good movie. Fear, and Mark Wahlberg proceeds to get to third base on a roller coaster on Reese Witherspoon, and the Sundays are doing a cover of Wild Horses. It's actually a really good cover, but that got me into the Sundays, and this was like pre-computer, so had to get like a tape from the library of that album. Next, I believe we're going into territory when I was a big, for those of you who don't know, we've talked about a little, I was a big film geek growing up, went to film school. When I saw Traffic, I fell in love with the song at the end when Benicio del Toro is watching the baseball game. And it is a piece by Brian Eno. So I got into Brian Eno a lot. I was really into film scores in general. You know, his ambient stuff really falls into that category as well. Next, like many other people, I find this band from Donnie Darko. It's Joy Division with Love Will Tear Us Apart. Had to look it up. What is this song? I love it. I think the movie's a little overrated, but that's for a different discussion and maybe a different channel altogether. But yeah, that's what got me into Joy Division. And I didn't really know the story of Joy Division like until I had to read about it. And I was like, why do they just have like such little output? And I was like, oh, okay. Bummer. Next, kind of in the same vein as Daft Punk, scored most of this movie. It's got to be Badly Drawn Boy and the soundtrack to About a Boy. Absolutely gorgeous. Love it. I'm a big fan of Badly Drawn Boy. But to be honest, I think my favorite stuff of his is still on this album. Silent Sigh is one of my favorite songs of all time. Really haunting and cheerful at the same time, which is kind of Tony Collette's character in the movie. Great movie if you haven't seen it. But yeah, those are my 5.
I think it's been said on the channel before, I'm not a huge movie buff, and I'm definitely not a soundtrack guy, but there's like 3 or 4 soundtracks that I've always really liked a lot. And I've discovered a few bands from them. I think a really great one is the soundtrack of Beatles covers, I Am Sam. And from that, I think was probably the first time I heard Nick Cave. His cover of Let It Be on there is great. And also Granddaddy, they do Revolution on there. Really different, interesting version of that song. That led me to their albums. I enjoy them a lot.
I thought you were going to say Across the Universe for a second. I almost had a heart attack.
One band that I discovered is on the Clueless soundtrack as well with Supergrass. And that is a band called Smoking Popes. Really cool, interesting band. Really like his voice. The song from Clueless is called Need You Around. And then they have another song on another one of my favorite soundtracks, which is the soundtrack to the movie Angus. They have a song on that called Mrs. You and Me, which is really cool. And then staying on the Angus soundtrack, one of Joe's favorite bands, a band that I first heard there is Ash. And I believe, yeah, Ash has two songs on the Angus soundtrack. Kung Fu and Jack Names the Planets are both on there. And then one of my favorite bands ever, I discovered through a soundtrack, and that is Dinosaur Jr. The first time I heard them was on the Wayne's World 2 soundtrack with the song Out There. And then I immediately went and bought the full album, Where You Been.
Cool.
There's some cool deep cuts on the Wayne's World soundtracks, like Ugly Kid Joe, and not that those are great bands, but I love some of the songs that are on some of those.
I guess
All
there's
right.
one more. I
Yep.
will mention this, even though it's really lame. Armageddon soundtrack. Really wasn't into Aerosmith until I heard Can't Miss a Thing from the Armageddon soundtrack. So I guess that would count. I think I probably actually got into Aerosmith from that. So sure, we'll throw that one in there too. I forgot how good the scenes in that movie with Ben Affleck and Liv Tyler playing with a little animal cracker, rocking out to some sweet, sweet orchestral Aerosmith mashup from who wrote that, like Diane Warren or something. But
Yeah.
doesn't get much better than that.
All right. So let us know what bands you discovered through soundtracks down below. What are some of your favorite soundtracks? You could throw that down there as well. Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Check out the social media down in the description. And we will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.